The acceptance letter from Stanford arrived on a Tuesday morning in April, slipped between grocery store circulars and credit card offers. I remembered the exact weight of the envelope in my hands, the way my fingers trembled as I read the words, "We are pleased to offer you admission for the third time," just to make sure they were real. I was 17 years old, and I had just been accepted into one of the most prestigious computer science programs in the country with a full scholarship. Everything I had worked for since freshman year, the sleepless nights coding, the competition wins, the 4.0 GPA maintained while building 3 apps that had actual users, had finally paid off. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. My parents' reaction was not what I expected. "That's wonderful, honey," my mother said, barely looking up from her coffee. "But, you've been working so hard. Maybe you should take some time to relax before college." My father nodded, folding his newspaper with deliberate care. "Your mother's right, Maya. You'll burn out if you keep pushing yourself like this. We've been talking, and we think you should spend the summer doing something different." Different turned out to be an elaborate lie. "We want you to help us with a project," Dad said that evening after dinner. "You know how we've always talked about digitizing Grandma's old photographs and letters? We think it would be a wonderful way to preserve the family history. And you're so good with technology." I should have been suspicious. My parents had never shown much interest in family history before. But I was high on my Stanford acceptance, feeling generous and maybe a little guilty about all the time I'd spent locked in my room coding instead of spending time with them. They were asking for 3 months. I could give them that. "Sure," I said. "I can do that." The boxes arrived 2 days later, dozens of them, stacked in our garage like a cardboard fortress. Each one was filled with photographs, letters, documents, and memorabilia spanning 4 generations of our family. My grandmother's entire archive, apparently, which my parents had been storing in a rental unit for years. "We want everything scanned, organized, labeled, and backed up," Mom explained. "Every photograph dated and identified. Every letter transcribed. Create a digital archive that the whole family can access. Make it beautiful, Maya. Make it something special." Looking back, I should have seen the red flags, the sheer volume of material, the impossibly detailed requirements, the way they kept adding new boxes every few days, claiming they'd found more stuff. But I was 17 and naive, and I loved my parents. I trusted them. I set up a workspace in the garage. I bought a high-quality scanner with my own money from freelancing gigs. I developed a database system, created a tagging protocol, designed a beautiful interface for the Family Archive website. I worked 8 hours a day, sometimes more, carefully handling fragile photographs from the 1920s, squinting at faded cursive in letters from World War II, color-correcting images, writing detailed metadata. It was tedious work, but I told myself it was meaningful. I was preserving history, making my parents happy, being a good daughter. June passed, then July. My Stanford student portal kept sending me emails about orientation, about housing selection, about required summer reading. I ignored most of them, too exhausted each evening to do more than eat dinner and collapse into bed. "Almost done?" I'd ask my parents every week. "Just a few more boxes," they'd say. "You're doing such an amazing job, sweetheart." In early August, with 3 weeks left before I was supposed to leave for Stanford, I finally finished. 3 months of work. Over 10,000 photographs scanned and organized. Hundreds of letters transcribed. A gorgeous, searchable digital archive with multiple backup systems. I called my parents into the garage to show them. I pulled up the website on my laptop, demonstrated the search functions, showed them the family tree I'd constructed, the timeline view, the ability to download high-resolution copies of any image. My mother smiled. My father nodded approvingly. "This is beautiful, Maya," Mom said. "Really beautiful." "So we can donate the physical boxes now, right?" I asked. "I checked with the County Historical Society, and they're willing to take everything. The archive is complete." My parents exchanged a glance. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that made my stomach drop. "Actually, honey," Dad said slowly, "there's something we need to tell you." That's when my world shattered. "We've been in touch with Stanford," Mom said, her voice gentle, like she was talking to a child. "We explained that you've decided to defer your enrollment for a year. You've been working so hard, and we think you need a gap year to mature a bit, to figure out what you really want." The garage seemed to tilt. "What? I didn't decide that." "We decided it for you," Dad said, his voice firmer now. "You're 17, Maya. We're your parents. We know what's best." "You contacted Stanford without telling me?" "We're allowed to make decisions about your education," Mom said. "You're still a minor." "I turn 18 in 2 weeks. And the semester it starts in 3 weeks. I have orientation, I have housing." "All canceled," Dad interrupted. "We've already handled it. You'll reapply for next year. Maybe you'll get in again, maybe you won't. But this year, you're going to stay home, get a job, learn some responsibility." I couldn't breathe. "The scholarship, my full scholarship." "You'll have to reapply for that too," Mom said. "But honestly, Maya, maybe it's for the best. Stanford is very far away and very expensive even with financial aid. There are perfectly good state schools closer to home." The pieces were falling into place now, forming a picture so ugly I didn't want to look at it. "The boxes," I whispered. "The family archive. You made all of that up." "Not made up," Dad said. "We really did want it done. But yes, we also wanted to keep you busy, keep you here, keep you from making any plans that would be hard to cancel. You sabotaged me. You stole 3 months of my life, the most important 3 months, just to keep me here." "We didn't steal anything," Mom snapped, her gentle facade cracking. "We're your parents. We have a right to guide your future. And honestly, Maya, you've been impossible to live with for the past 2 years. Always in your room, always on that computer, acting like you're too good for this family. We thought maybe if you spent some time on something that mattered, actual family history instead of your silly apps, you'd remember where you came from." "My silly apps?" I felt something cold and hard forming in my chest. "My silly apps have 50,000 active users. I've made $10,000 in freelancing. I got into Stanford." "And look how full of yourself you've become," Dad said. "This is exactly what we're talking about. You need humility, Maya. You need to understand that you're not as special as you think you are." I looked at my parents, really looked at them, and saw strangers, saw small, frightened people who were threatened by their own daughter's success, saw the resentment they'd been hiding behind smiles and supportive words. "I'm calling Stanford," I said. "Right now, I'm explaining what happened." "It's too late," Mom said. "We called them 2 months ago. Your spot has been given to someone else. Your deferral is official." "Then I'll sue you. I'm 18 in 2 weeks. And you have no money," Dad said calmly. "No car, no resources. You're welcome to try to leave, Maya. But where exactly will you go? How will you support yourself?" They had planned this, meticulously. They had trapped me. I went to my room and didn't come out for 3 days. When I finally emerged, I was different. The naive 17-year-old who trusted her parents was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone capable of patience, someone capable of revenge. I started with research. I spent 2 weeks learning everything I could about parental rights, emancipation, educational law, and scholarship deferment policies. I discovered that my parents had lied about one crucial thing. Stanford's policy allowed for deferment appeals in cases of family emergency or parental interference. There was still a chance. I contacted Stanford's admissions office directly, using a friend's phone since my parents had started monitoring my calls. I explained everything: the manipulation, the lies, the fact that I had never consented to deferment. I sent them documentation, time-stamped photos of me working in the garage, emails from my parents about the family project, proof that I had been actively engaging with Stanford's pre-orientation materials right up until my parents intervened. The admissions counselor was sympathetic but firm. Deadlines were deadlines. However, she noted that my scholarship was actually separate from admission, administered by a private foundation. If I could prove I'd been prevented from attending through no fault of my own, the scholarship might be held for me. I needed leverage. I needed my parents to admit what they'd done. That's when I remembered the archive. The beautiful, comprehensive digital archive I'd spent 3 months creating. The one stored on servers that only I had the passwords to. I had built in multiple layers of access control, assuming family members would want different permission levels. I was the administrator. I controlled everything. On my 18th birthday, I locked everyone else out. "Maya, the website isn't working," my mother called up to my room the next morning. "Huh," I said, coming downstairs. "That's weird. Let me check." I made a show of trying to troubleshoot, then shook my head. "Looks like there's been some kind of system error. The whole archive might be corrupted." My father's face went pale. "Corrupted? But we showed it to Aunt Linda. We promised the whole family. We're having a reunion next month, and we told everyone we'd have this amazing digital presentation." "I know," I said sympathetically. "I'm really sorry. I'll try to restore it from backups, but these things can be tricky." For the next week, I pretended to work on fixing the archive while my parents grew increasingly desperate. They had apparently spent months bragging to extended family about this project, positioning themselves as the family historians, promising an elaborate presentation at the upcoming reunion. My grandmother's 90th birthday party, I learned. The whole family was coming, 60 people. They'd already rented a venue. "Maya, please," my mother begged on day 6. "Your grandmother is so excited about this. We can't disappoint her." "I'm doing my best, Mom," I said. "But I've been thinking. Maybe I should contact Stanford again, try to explain what happened. I've read that sometimes they make exceptions." "Absolutely not," Dad said immediately. "You're not going to Stanford. We've been over this." "Then I guess I'll keep working on the archive," I said. "Though it's really hard to focus when I'm so stressed about my future." The standoff continued for another week. The reunion was now 10 days away. My parents were frantic, snapping at each other, barely sleeping. I remained calm. I had learned patience during those 3 months in the garage. Finally, my mother cracked. "What do you want?" she asked, cornering me in the kitchen. "Just tell us what you want, Maya." "I want the truth," I said. "I want you to call Stanford Admissions and tell them exactly what you did. I want you to admit that you lied to me, manipulated me, and sabotaged my education. I want it in writing, and I want you to pay my application fees if I have to reapply anywhere." "That's insane," Dad said, appearing in the doorway. "We're not doing that." "Okay," I said. "Then Grandma doesn't get her birthday archive. You can explain to the family why the project you've been bragging about for months doesn't exist." "You're blackmailing us," Mom whispered. "Our own daughter." "I learned from the best," I said. They held out for 3 more days. Then, with the reunion only a week away, they capitulated. I drafted the letter myself. It was detailed, specific, and brutally honest about what they had done and why. They both signed it, handwritten signatures at the bottom. I recorded them reading it aloud. I made copies. I stored everything in multiple locations. Then I called Stanford. The admissions counselor listened to the recording, read the letter, and said she'd escalate to the dean. It wasn't a guarantee, she warned, but it was something. Only after I'd sent everything to Stanford did I restore my parents' access to the archive. I gave them the passwords and the administrator controls, with 24 hours to spare before the reunion. "I hope Grandma has a wonderful birthday," I said. They didn't thank me. The reunion was apparently a success. I didn't attend. Instead, I spent that weekend at my friend Jessica's house, helping her parents set up their new computer system. They paid me $200 and told me I was always welcome in their home. When I came back, my parents weren't speaking to me. 2 weeks later, I got an email from Stanford. After careful review of my case, they were offering me spring admission with my full scholarship intact. I would miss fall semester, but I could start in January. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. I accepted immediately. My parents' response to the news was silence. We lived in the same house for the next 4 months, but we barely spoke. My mother left food outside my bedroom door like I was a prisoner. My father communicated through notes left on the kitchen counter. I didn't care. I got a job at a local coffee shop, saved every penny, and spent my evenings taking free online courses to prepare for spring semester. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I built 2 more apps. I survived. In December, Jessica's parents offered to drive me to Stanford. They helped me move into my dorm, took me to lunch, and hugged me goodbye with genuine affection. "Your parents are idiots," Jessica's mom whispered in my ear. "You're going to do amazing things." My own parents never said goodbye. I threw myself into college with an intensity that worried my roommate. I took extra classes, joined research groups, networked obsessively. By the end of my first full year, I had a summer internship at Google. By junior year, I had job offers from 3 major tech companies. I sent my parents a graduation announcement. They didn't come. 5 years after that terrible summer in the garage, I was a senior software engineer at a major tech company, making more money than both my parents combined. I had my own apartment in San Francisco, a strong professional network, and a life I'd built entirely on my own terms. And I had completely cut my parents out of it. They tried to reach out occasionally. A birthday card here, an email there. My mother called once, crying, saying they'd been too hard on me, but they'd only wanted what was best. My father sent a Facebook friend request I never accepted. I ignored all of it. Then, 6 years after Stanford, I got a call from Aunt Linda. My grandmother was dying. She had a few weeks at most. She wanted to see me. I almost didn't go. But Grandma had never been part of what my parents did. She'd called me regularly throughout college, sent care packages, told me she was proud of me. She'd been angry when she found out what my parents had done, though by then it was too late to change anything. I flew home on a Thursday and went straight to the hospice facility. Grandma looked tiny in the hospital bed, but her eyes were still sharp. "There's my Stanford girl," she said, her voice weak but warm. We talked for hours. She asked about my work, my life, my plans. She didn't mention my parents until I was getting ready to leave. "They're in the waiting room," she said. "They've been here every day." "Good for them." "Maya." She caught my hand with surprising strength. "I'm not asking you to forgive them. What they did was cruel and stupid. But holding on to rage, it'll hurt you more than it hurts them. They tried to destroy my future." "And they failed," Grandma said. You built a beautiful life anyway. Don't let them take up any more space in it, not even angry space. Living well is the best revenge, sweetheart, and you're living very well indeed. I saw my parents in the waiting room on my way out. They looked older, smaller somehow. My mother had gray streaks in her hair I didn't remember. My father's shoulders were stooped. "Maya," Mom said, standing up. "Thank you for coming, for seeing her." I nodded but didn't speak. Dad started, then stopped. "We're sorry for what we did. We were wrong." "Yes," I said. "You were. Is there any chance, could we talk? Maybe get coffee?" I looked at them, these people who had given me life and then tried to control it, who had loved me so badly they damaged us both. "No," I said, "I don't think so, but I hope you've learned something from all this." I walked away and didn't look back. Grandma died 2 weeks later. At the funeral, I sat on the opposite side of the room from my parents. Several relatives asked if we'd reconciled. I said no, politely but firmly, and changed the subject. After the service, I approached the family archive display, a selection of the photographs I'd scanned 7 years ago, printed and mounted beautifully. Aunt Linda had arranged it. "The archive you made," she told me, "it's been such a gift to the family. We've all accessed it, added to it. Your grandmother looked at it almost every day in her last months. She said it made her feel like her whole life was preserved, remembered." I looked at the photographs, at my great-grandparents' wedding portrait, at my grandmother as a young woman, at the visual history of my family stretching back a century. Despite everything, the manipulation, the betrayal, the stolen summer, I had created something real, something that mattered. And unlike what my parents had tried to do, it wasn't about control. It was about preservation, about honoring the past without being trapped by it. "I'm glad she enjoyed it," I said. That night, I flew back to San Francisco, back to my life, back to the future I'd built from the wreckage of my parents' sabotage. I never spoke to my parents again. People sometimes ask me if I regret cutting them off so completely. If I wonder whether I should have tried harder to forgive them, to rebuild some kind of relationship. I don't. They made a choice when I was 17. They chose to prioritize their need for control over my dreams. They chose to lie to me, manipulate me, and sabotage the biggest opportunity of my young life. They didn't do it to protect me from danger, or because they couldn't afford Stanford, or for any legitimate parental reason. They did it because my success made them feel small. And when I discovered their betrayal, I made a choice too. I chose myself. I chose my future. I chose to never again give power over my life to people who would use it to hurt me, even if those people were my parents. Some people call that unforgiving. I call it self-preservation. The revenge I took wasn't the archive lockout. That was just a tactic, a means to an end. The real revenge was living well, spectacularly well, building the exact life they tried to prevent me from having. Every success I've had since then has been its own small victory. Every promotion, every project, every moment of happiness in the life I created, it's all proof that they failed. They wanted to keep me small, keep me close, keep me under their control. Instead, they set me free. 10 years after that summer in the garage, I'm exactly where I dreamed of being. Successful, independent, and surrounded by people who support my ambitions rather than sabotage them. I've published papers, led major projects, and mentored younger engineers who remind me of my 17-year-old self. Brilliant, ambitious, and sometimes too trusting. I tell them all the same thing. Trust people who prove themselves trustworthy. Set boundaries. Never let anyone, not family, not friends, not romantic partners, make you smaller to make themselves comfortable. And if someone betrays you, learn from it. Document everything. Build your leverage. And then, when you're ready, walk away and never look back. That's not cruelty. That's survival. My parents taught me that lesson. They just didn't expect me to apply it to them. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if they'd just been honest with me. If they'd said, "We're scared of losing you. We're afraid you'll go to Stanford and become someone we don't recognize and never come home." I would have understood that. I might have even empathized. We could have worked through it together. But they didn't trust me with the truth. They didn't trust me at all. So now they have a daughter who's successful, independent, and wants nothing to do with them. They get to watch from a distance as I live the life they tried to prevent, and they'll never be part of it. I sleep just fine with that. After all, I learned from their own lesson. Sometimes you have to make hard choices about what's best for your future. They made theirs. I made mine. And unlike them, I don't regret it for a second.